Let me be completely honest with you before anything else happens in this video. I am not a programmer. I am not an engineer. I do not know what a kernel does. I cannot read a line of code. And until about 8 weeks ago, if you had asked me what a terminal window was, I would have pictured something at an airport. And I am the kind of person who uses a computer for three things: browsing the internet, watching videos, and getting work done. And as long as those three things worked, I never once thought about what was running underneath them. I am telling you this because what I am about to share with you is not a story for tech. Of someone who had absolutely no business switching to Linux, decided to do it anyway, and came out the other side genuinely stunned at how straightforward the whole experience actually was. And if you have ever thought about making this switch but told yourself you were not technical enough, smart enough, or patient enough to pull it off, I need you to stay with me, because everything you believe about that is probably wrong. The story starts, like a lot of stories in 2025 and 2026, with Windows 11 slowly grinding down my patience. Not in one dramatic moment, not because of one catastrophic failure, but through this quiet, relentless accumulation of small indignities that I kept absorbing until one day I could not absorb anymore. The notifications started first, promotional alerts appearing in the corner of my screen suggesting I try Microsoft 365, upgrade my storage through OneDrive, explore features I had no interest in and had never asked about. I dismissed them. They came back. I found the setting to turn them off. The next update moved that setting somewhere else and turned them back on. Then came the advertisements in the Start menu. Actual sponsored app recommendations, sitting right beside my pinned programs like they belonged there. Then came the update that restarted my computer. In the middle of a document I had been working on for 2 hours, came back with an entirely rearranged settings panel and moved a tool I used every single week to a location I spent 40 minutes trying to find. According to data published by Statista and corroborated by multiple user surveys conducted through 2025, Windows 11 satisfaction rates among home users dropped measurably year over year, with intrusive update behavior and unsolicited advertising among the top 3 cited reasons. I was not alone in this experience. I was simply one of millions of ordinary users, quietly reaching the edge of what they were willing to accept. It was during one of those research spirals, the ones where you start by searching how to stop Windows from restarting itself, and end up 3 hours later reading about operating systems you have never heard of, that Linux entered the picture seriously for the first time. I had heard the word before, vaguely, in the way you hear words that exist in a world adjacent to yours, something developers use, something you need a computer science degree to operate, something that requires typing commands into a black screen and memorizing syntax like you are studying for an exam. That was the complete picture I had of Linux, and it was almost entirely wrong. What I found instead, when I actually started reading, was a collection of communities describing an experience that sounded nothing like what I had imagined. Ordinary people, teachers, writers, retirees, small business owners, describing how they had switched to Linux with no technical background and found it not just manageable, but genuinely better than what they had left behind. I found threads on Reddit's r Linux Mint community with hundreds of thousands of members. I found beginner guides on websites like It's Foss and Linux Mint's own official documentation pages. I found forum posts from 2024 and early 2026, where people with identical computing backgrounds to mine described the switch in language that made it sound almost unremarkable. And the more I read, the more I began to suspect that the reputation Linux carried was built on an experience that no longer existed in the same form it once had. The next step was restarting my laptop and accessing what is called the boot menu, a screen that lets you choose which device the computer starts from, rather than automatically loading from the internal hard drive the way it normally does. The key you press to access this menu varies by laptop manufacturer. On my machine, it was F12, pressed at the very first moment the screen comes on during startup. A quick internet search for your specific laptop model and the phrase boot menu key will give you the correct answer in under 30 seconds, regardless of which brand you own. From the boot menu, I selected the USB drive, and the laptop began loading something I had not expected to find. A complete, fully functional Linux Mint desktop running entirely from the USB drive itself, with nothing installed on my laptop, nothing changed on my internal drive, nothing at risk in any direction. This is called a live session, and I cannot overstate how significant it was for my confidence going into the rest of this process. A live session means you are not committing to anything. You're not installing anything. You're not gambling your existing files or your existing Windows installation on an experiment you are not sure about yet. You are simply running Linux. From a USB drive, the way you might preview a document before you decide whether to save it. Your internal hard drive sits completely untouched for the entire duration. If you close the laptop, pull out the USB drive, and restart, you are back in Windows exactly as you left it. The live session is the single most Important feature for nervous first-time users to understand because it removes the risk entirely from the trial phase, and removing the risk removes the largest psychological barrier that most people carry into this process. I spent the better part of a full Saturday inside that live session, and I want to describe what I found there in honest detail because I think the gap between what people imagine Linux looks like and what Linux Mint actually looks like in 2025 and 2026 is one of the most significant mismatches in the entire conversation around this topic. The desktop that appeared when the live session loaded was clean, organized, and immediately familiar in its basic logic. Taskbar at the bottom, application menu in the lower left corner, a desktop with icons on it, a file manager that opened when I double-clicked the files icon and showed me folders, documents, pictures, downloads, desktop, arranged in exactly the hierarchy I was already used to navigating in Windows. I opened the web browser, which was Firefox pre-installed, and went straight to YouTube. It loaded, the video played, the sound worked. No configuration, no codec installation, no driver hunting. It simply worked the same way it works in any browser on any operating system, because a web browser rendering a website does not particularly care what is running beneath it. I went to Gmail and checked my email. I opened a Google Doc. Both worked perfectly and completely without any setup at all, because they are web applications, and the web does not discriminate between operating systems in any way that a normal user would ever notice. I then opened the software manager, which functions as Linux Mint's equivalent of an app store, and searched for the applications I use most frequently to see whether they existed in a form I could install. Chrome was there, Zoom was there, Spotify was there, VLC for playing downloaded video files was there. Each one appeared in the search results the same way an app appears in any app store, with a name, a description, and an install button. The breadth of what was available through that single interface surprised me genuinely because the mental image I had carried of Linux software availability was frozen somewhere around 2015, when the landscape was considerably more sparse than what it looks like today. According to figures tracked by FlatHub, the platform that hosts Flatpak applications, which extend Linux's software library even further, the number of available applications crossed 20,000 in 2024 and has continued growing through 2026. Covering categories from creative tools to productivity, software to communication platforms in a way that makes the gap between Linux and Windows software availability far narrower than the conventional narrative suggests. By the time that Saturday afternoon had finished, I had made my decision. I had used Linux Mint for 8 hours across a completely ordinary range of tasks, and I had not encountered a single moment of genuine confusion that I could not resolve by looking at what was in front of me. Making the backup before installation was not something I agonized over or treated as optional. Every file I cared about, documents, photos, downloaded music, the folder of receipts and records I keep for my freelance work, went onto an external hard drive before I touched anything else. This is not a step unique to Linux installation. This is a step that should precede any significant change to a computer, regardless of what that change is. And I want to say it plainly, rather than burying it in a footnote, because I think people sometimes skip it under the assumption that nothing will go wrong, and the value of a backup is precisely that. It protects you from the situations you did not predict. With that done, I clicked the Install Linux Mint icon that sits on the live session desktop, and the installation wizard opened. And what happened next is the part of this story that I think will surprise people the most, because the installation wizard for Linux Mint in 2025 and 2026 is one of the most thoughtfully designed pieces of software I have personally encountered in terms of making a complicated underlying process feel completely manageable for someone with no technical background whatsoever. It opens with a welcome screen written in plain language that tells you exactly what is about to happen. It asks you to select your language from a visual list. It asks you to confirm your keyboard layout. It asks you to select your time zone by clicking on a map of the world. These are the kinds of interface decisions you encounter in consumer applications every day, and navigating them requires nothing beyond basic literacy and the ability to recognize the name of your country on a map. The installer then asks whether you want to install third-party software for improved hardware, compatibility, and media playback. Every beginner guide I had read during my 2 weeks of research recommended selecting yes on this option, and I did, without needing to understand the technical details of what it was doing, because the installer handles all of it automatically. Then comes the disk installation screen, which is the point where the process touches something irreversible and therefore the point that commands the most attention. The installer presents you with options. You can erase the entire disk and install Linux Mint as your sole operating system, which is what I chose because I had already backed up everything and was committed to making a complete switch. Or you can install Linux Mint alongside Windows in what is called a dual boot configuration, which keeps both operating systems on the same machine and lets you choose which one to load each time you start the computer. The installer manages the technical complexity of that dual boot arrangement automatically, including the disk partitioning that would have required manual terminal commands in older versions of Linux. You do not need to understand what partitioning means to let the installer do it correctly on your behalf. I confirmed the installation, and the process ran entirely on its own for approximately 20 minutes, while the progress bar advanced across the screen and a series of informational slides described features of Linux Mint that I would discover for myself over the following weeks. When it finished, a message appeared telling me the installation was complete and asking me to restart the computer and remove the USB drive. I did exactly that, and Linux Mint loaded from my internal drive for the first time. That first morning of using the installed system as my actual working environment rather than a live session test was when the performance difference became impossible to ignore. My laptop is a 3-year-old mid-range machine. Nothing special, nothing old enough to be struggling, just an ordinary computer of the kind that tens of millions of people are currently using to run Windows 11. On Windows, starting the computer in the morning and reaching a state where it was genuinely ready for use, not just showing a desktop, but actually responsive and not still churning through background startup tasks, took somewhere between 50 and 60 seconds on a good morning and longer after updates. On Linux Mint, the same laptop reached a fully usable desktop in under 15 seconds from the moment I pressed the power button, and it was immediately responsive rather than making me wait for background processes to settle. This is not a marginal difference. It is not a benchmark comparison visible only in synthetic tests. It is a difference so large and so immediately perceptible that I noticed it on the very first boot without being prompted to look for it. The explanation, which I found later in technical discussions on forums and publications, including Ars Technica and Linux Journal, is that Linux operating systems run substantially fewer background services at idle than Windows 11 does, consuming less memory and less processor capacity just to maintain the operating system's baseline state, which leaves more of the hardware's resources available throughout the first full week. I worked through reinstalling and configuring every application that formed part of my regular routine. And I want to be specific about this process, because software availability is the concern I hear most frequently from people who are interested in switching but hesitant to commit. Chrome installed through the software manager in under 2 minutes, and after I signed into my Google account, restored every bookmark, every saved password, and every extension I had configured on Windows automatically and completely. The transition of my entire browser environment was essentially instantaneous. Zoom installed the same way and worked on the first test call without any configuration beyond signing into my account. Spotify installed identically and recognized my playlists and listening history without complication. For photo editing, I had used a lightweight Windows application that has no Linux equivalent, and the adjustment required finding an alternative, in my case GIMP, which is more capable than what I had been using and required roughly 30 minutes of familiarization before I was comfortable using it for the basic tasks I needed. LibreOffice, which came pre-installed with Linux Mint, handled Microsoft Office files that arrived through email without any formatting issues that affected the actual content or usability of those documents. By the end of that first week, I was operating at what I would honestly describe as full normal productivity, completing every task I needed to complete using Linux Mint without fighting the system, without troubleshooting, and without missing windows in any functional. The thing that hit me hardest over the weeks that followed the switch was not any specific feature Linux Mint had that Windows lacked. It was not the performance improvement, as striking as that was. It was not the software library, as surprisingly complete as that turned out to be. It was something quieter and more fundamental than any of those things, something I did not have a precise name for until I had been living inside it long enough to understand what I had been living without. It was silence, not literal silence. My laptop's fan still runs, my keyboard still clicks, my notifications still chime when an email arrives. The silence I mean is the absence of an operating system that had opinions about how I should be using my computer and was quietly acting on those opinions in the background while I worked. No promotional notification appearing in the corner of my screen suggesting I try a Microsoft product I had not asked about. No advertisement sitting inside my application launcher between the programs I had actually chosen to install. No update restarting my machine in the middle of work I had not saved. Returning with an interface rearranged in ways I had not approved and settings reset to defaults I had previously changed. No background sense that the operating system running beneath my work was serving interests that were not entirely my own. According to research published by the Electronic Frontier Foundation and discussed extensively across privacy-focused technology communities through 2025 and into 2026, Windows 11 collects and transmits a significant volume of diagnostic and usage data by default, with opt-out options that are distributed across multiple settings panels in ways that make complete opting out genuinely difficult for non-technical users. I'm not citing this to alarm anyone. I'm citing it because understanding what I had been accepting without realizing it made the contrast with what I found in Linux Mint feel even sharper and more meaningful than it might have otherwise. Linux Mint simply ran. It did what I asked it to do and nothing else. The desktop was mine in a way that felt different from anything I had experienced in years of Windows use, and I had not fully appreciated how much I had been gradually accepting the alternative until the alternative was completely gone and I could look back at it from the outside. I want to address something directly here because I know it is sitting in the back of the mind of a significant portion of people watching this video, particularly those who are older or who tried Linux at some point in the past and found the experience genuinely difficult and frustrating. That experience was real. I'm not going to tell you it was not, or that you were wrong about what you found. Linux 10 years ago had meaningful hardware compatibility problems, a software library with significant gaps, an installation process that required considerably more technical knowledge, and a community support culture that was not always patient with beginners. All of that was true, and the reputation that Linux built during that era was an accurate reflection of the experience it was delivering at the time. But the Linux of 2026 is not that Linux. The progress that has accumulated over the past decade in hardware detection, in the quality and accessibility of installation wizards, in the breadth of software available through package managers and universal formats like Flatpak, and in the tone and accessibility of community support spaces has been continuous and substantial and has genuinely transformed what the experience of being a new Linux user looks and feels like. DistroWatch, which tracks Linux distribution downloads and popularity, recorded Linux Mint as the most downloaded beginner-friendly distribution consistently through 2024 and 2025, reflecting a genuine and growing wave of ordinary users, making exactly the kind of switch I made. The gap between what Linux was and what Linux is has never been wider, and the reputation has simply not kept pace with the reality. The support resources available to new Linux users in 2026 are another area where the reality differs sharply from what most people assume they will find. The Linux Mint community forum is free to join, searchable, and contains detailed, accurate answers to essentially every common question and problem that a new user is likely to encounter, written in plain language by people who have a genuine interest in helping newcomers, rather than gatekeeping the platform behind technical fluency. The Linux Mint subreddit, with its hundreds of thousands of active members, is particularly welcoming to people who are new to the platform and not yet comfortable with technical terminology. In my first 8 weeks on Linux Mint, I encountered 3 situations that required me to search for help. A display scaling issue where text in one application appeared slightly blurry was resolved through a forum search in under 5 minutes by changing a single setting in that application's preferences. A Bluetooth speaker that was not connecting reliably was fixed by following a short sequence of steps described in a community post that took about 10 minutes to complete. And installing an application that was not available in the standard software manager required learning about Flatpak, enough to use after reading a beginner guide that took 15 minutes. 3 issues in 8 weeks, all. The ability to read and follow written instructions clearly. That record is better than my typical Windows troubleshooting experience over a comparable period of time, and I have been using Windows for my entire adult life. So let me bring this to the place it has been heading since the first sentence. If you are an ordinary computer user, not a developer, not a system administrator, not anyone who has ever described themselves as a tech person, and you have been watching Windows 11 push advertisements into your Start menu, restart your computer without warning, and rearrange settings you had carefully configured while telling yourself that Linux is too complicated for someone like you, I want to tell you clearly and from direct personal experience that you're wrong about that in 2026. The process of downloading Linux Mint from the official Linux Mint website is free. Writing it to a USB drive using Balena Etcher takes 3 clicks and 10 or minutes. Booting from that USB drive into a live session where you can spend an entire day using Linux Mint without installing anything or risking anything costs you nothing but a few hours. And what you are likely to find on the other side of that afternoon is what I found. That the switch you had been postponing, because you assumed it was beyond your capability, was completely within your reach the entire time. The technology running your daily life should work for you, should respect your time, should stay out of your way, and should not treat you as a product to be monetized while you are simply trying to get things done. In 2026, you have a free, stable, genuinely accessible alternative that delivers exactly that. The only thing left is deciding whether you are ready to try it.